I never thought I'd see this in my own driveway. My wife standing there face to face with a cop who'd just been called on us by the HOA president. And then in front of everyone, he froze, went pale, and called her by a title no neighbor had ever heard before. Commander Stone. That single word shattered Haley's fake smile, and in that instant, the entire neighborhood saw the truth crack open. Act 1. The First Strike. My name's Sean Matthews. I'm 38 and I teach American history at Lincoln High. You'd think spending all day with teenagers would prepare me for every kind of manipulation and power game. Turns out teenagers have nothing on suburban politics. I've been married to Jane for 12 years. She's 40, works in law enforcement, but she keeps her role private. Nobody wants neighbors pestering you about tickets or asking for inside info on cases. We'd only lived in Meadowbrook Heights for 8 months, thought we'd found our perfect little slice of paradise, tree-lined streets, manicured lawns, kids riding bikes until the streetlights came on. That illusion didn't last. Our HOA president was Haley Sanders. To everyone else, she was the angel of the block running food drives, helping old folks with groceries, smiling that sweet neighborly smile. Always so helpful. Too helpful. Looking back, that should have been my first red flag. Nobody's that perfect without a hidden motive. The fine came on a Tuesday morning. A crisp envelope in our mailbox, professional letterhead photos from multiple angles, a citation about mailbox height regulations. $500 because our mailbox stood 2 inches too tall. It was so official looking, I almost believed it. Jane sipped her coffee, shrugged, and said, "Pick your battles, Sean. 500 isn't worth a war." But something gnawed at me. I borrowed a tape measure and checked every single mailbox on our street, 12 of them. 7 were taller than ours, 3 were shorter by half an inch. Ours wasn't special, yet only we got the fine. Selective enforcement, it stank. Either Haley was the most incompetent HOA president alive, or she was targeting us. And Haley didn't make mistakes. Then Marcus the handyman dropped another bomb. "Oh yeah," he said casually. "Haley asked me to take notes on everyone's property while I'm fixing stuff, help her keep track of compliance." He said it like it was normal. But to me it sounded like reconnaissance, surveillance, like we were all suspects in some suburban sting operation. That suspicion turned to dread the day I dropped my keys by the front door. They slid behind Jane's decorative planters. Reaching down, my hand brushed something metallic. I pulled out a tiny device, a professional-grade camera, no bigger than a quarter with a lens staring right at me. My stomach dropped. It wasn't some cheap Amazon gadget. I looked up the serial number, law enforcement grade, only sold to licensed agencies or private investigators. Whoever planted it had training and serious resources. Someone wasn't just watching our yard, they were watching inside our home. Our private conversations, our arguments, our moments as a couple, violated. When Jane came home, I showed her the device. She handled it like evidence, her jaw tightening with each detail. "This isn't a nosy neighbor," she said coldly. "This is professional. The real question is, who else knows I'm a police commander?" Act 2. The Setup. The very next morning, a text buzzed on my phone. "Emergency HOA meeting tonight, 7 p.m., Community Center." No explanation. My gut told me it wasn't a meeting, it was an ambush. When Jane and I walked in, the room was packed, 32 families crammed into a space that usually hosted yoga classes. Haley stood up front, clipboard in hand, eyes sparkling with rehearsed concern. She started talking about dangerous surveillance equipment being discovered in the neighborhood, hinting at threats to community safety. Neighbors stood up one by one, voicing concerns. Linda said she was scared for her family. Marcus, the same guy who fixed our gate, claimed some residents thought they were above the rules. Every statement was staged, cued by Haley's subtle nods. It wasn't a meeting, it was theater. I'd seen this before. Coordinated rebellions in classrooms, kids pretending to spontaneously complain when in reality one ringleader pulled the strings. Haley was the ringleader here. So I stood. My teacher voice cut through the murmurs. "If we're talking about community safety, let's talk about this." I held up the camera. Gasps rippled through the room. This was planted behind our window. It's professional surveillance equipment, thousands of dollars worth, requiring law enforcement credentials. Who here thinks that's a reasonable way to enforce mailbox rules? Half the room went pale. Haley's mask slipped for just a second. Her eyes flashed fury before she pasted the sweet smile back on. She tried to spin it, saying maybe someone was just concerned about break-ins. But I had the momentum now. People started whispering, doubting. That night as we left, I overheard Haley on the phone in the parking lot. "We need to accelerate the timeline. They found the camera. How long before she figures out who I really am?" The next day, Haley showed up on our porch demanding immediate payment of the fine. No appeals, no extensions. Jane stood her ground, calmly citing the law. Haley's smile cracked again, and in a burst of fury she pulled out her phone and dialed 911 right there in front of us. "I need officers immediately," she told dispatch residents, escalating threatening community safety. 8 minutes later, a patrol car pulled up. Officer Miller stepped out, all crisp uniform and professional posture. Haley launched into her victim routine voice, trembling as she described us as dangerous. Miller turned to Jane, then froze. His eyes widened. He stumbled back a step. "Commander Stone," he stammered. "Ma'am, I didn't expect to see you here." Haley's clipboard fell to the ground, her face drained of color. Back up arrived another officer who repeated the same recognition. Commander Stone. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Over the radio, word spread like wildfire. Haley realized in that instant she hadn't cornered a regular suburban family, she'd targeted a police commander with an entire department behind her. But instead of backing down, she doubled down. Within days, she spun the story into whispers. Isn't it inappropriate for police to intimidate neighbors? Doesn't it feel unsafe having surveillance tied to law enforcement? One by one, our neighbors turned cold. Friends stopped waving. Invitations dried up. The Hendersons forgot to mention their barbecue for the first time in years. Jane's own department pulled her in for a discussion about image and community relations. The message was clear. Any more complaints and internal affairs would get involved. That's when I cracked. For the first time, I felt hopeless. I sat on our porch staring at that cursed mailbox, wondering if Jane was right. Maybe we should cut our losses, sell, move somewhere far away. Maybe Haley had already won. But then Marcus came to me. His hand shook as he handed me a notebook, pages filled with notes Haley had ordered him to keep. Every entry was about us. Jane's work hours, what time she left, what time she came home. Haley had turned the handyman into her personal informant. And that wasn't all. A detective named Walsh had been sniffing around asking neighbors about Jane, her attitude toward community policing her schedule. Too specific, too convenient. Jane's instincts told her he wasn't just nosy, he was dirty. That's when she said it, voice steady with a determination I'd only seen a handful of times. "We're going to set a trap." Act 3. The Fall. Jane wired me up with recording gear. My job was simple: meet Walsh for coffee, act like a nervous husband, and see what he slipped. Walsh didn't hold back. He asked about the exact camera model information that hadn't been in any report. He mentioned details from our HOA meeting, things only someone working directly with Haley could know. And then he dropped the name Lisa. Not Haley. Lisa. Internal affairs moved fast. They cornered Walsh in his captain's office, played back his own words. He broke instantly, spilling everything. Haley Sanders wasn't Haley Sanders. She was Detective Lisa Cooper, missing from Chicago PD after a drug evidence scandal and millions stolen. She'd staged her own death, reinvented herself as the perfect HOA president, and had been scamming communities across 3 states. The FBI descended on Meadowbrook Heights like a storm. Jane and I sat in the community center as agents laid it all out. Lisa had stolen over $2 million through fake fines, fraudulent community projects, psychological manipulation. She was a predator wearing a cardigan and a smile. We called another emergency meeting. Neighbors filled the room as Jane presented the truth. Marcus displayed his notes. Linda broke down in tears, realizing she'd been used as a pawn. But when we turned to confront Lisa, her house was empty. Professionally, eerily empty. She'd activated her escape plan. That's when the hostage call came in. Linda was missing. Minutes later, FBI confirmed Lisa had barricaded herself in an abandoned community building, taser in hand, using Linda as leverage. The standoff was tense. FBI negotiators tried reasoning, but Lisa twisted every word, painting herself as the victim, even trying to frame Jane as corrupt. But then the agents hit her where it hurt most. They threatened to seize all the money she'd hidden offshore. That cracked her mask. She screamed, "That money is mine. Those sheep deserve to be fleeced." Her voice carried over the loudspeaker. Every neighbor outside heard it. The sweet angel of Meadowbrook Heights revealed herself as the wolf. That was the breaking point. SWAT moved. They breached through a service corridor Marcus had mapped out, blindsided her. Linda rolled free. Lisa Cooper, our perfect smiling HOA president, was dragged out in cuffs, still shouting about how we'd ruined everything. And that's where my story ends. Not at a barbecue, not with champagne, but with the sound of handcuffs snapping shut on the woman who nearly destroyed my wife's career, my marriage, and our entire community. Final line. Evil doesn't always come with a mask and a gun. Sometimes it smiles, waves, and asks about your mailbox.